Jacques Lacan. How does language construct the subject? Jacques Lacan was a French psychoanalyst who famously called for a return to Freud. Born in 1901, he became a controversial figure due to his unconventional teaching methods and complex theories. His major writings are collected in Écrits, and his long-running public seminars attracted the leading intellectuals of his day. Lacan reinterpreted Freud through the lens of structural linguistics, famously stating that the unconscious is structured like a language. He moved away from the biological focus of traditional psychoanalysis, instead exploring how the human subject is constructed through language, desire, and the gaze of others. The development of a coherent sense of self begins with a formative experience in early childhood, the mirror stage. When an infant recognizes their own image in a mirror, they experience a mixture of jubilation and alienation. Before this point, the child perceives themselves as a fragmented collection of sensations. The mirror image provides a fictional sense of wholeness and mastery that the child does not yet possess. This ideal I becomes the basis for the ego, but it is fundamentally an illusion. The child identifies with an image that is outside themselves, leading to a permanent state of alienation. This suggests that the self is not an internal essence but a construct built on an external representation. The ego is formed through a process of meconnaissance, misrecognition, as we strive to coincide with an idealized image we can never truly become. This concept challenges the idea of a stable, autonomous individual, suggesting instead that our identity is always mediated by an external gaze and the symbolic order. To understand human experience, Lacan distinguished between three interlocking registers: the imaginary, the symbolic, and the real. The imaginary is the realm of images, identifications, and the illusions of the self, rooted in the mirror stage. The symbolic is the domain of language, social laws, and the cultural order that precedes the individual. Entry into the symbolic is necessary for becoming a social subject, though it requires the repression of primal desires. Finally, the real is that which escapes both language and imagery. It is the raw, unmediated experience that cannot be symbolized. The real is often experienced as a traumatic gap or a limit to our understanding. Our reality is constructed through the interaction of these three realms. We live primarily in the symbolic and imaginary, using language and images to make sense of a world that is fundamentally grounded in the elusive real. This framework allows us to see how our desires and identities are shaped by social structures while acknowledging the presence of something that resists total symbolization. Desire is not about finding a specific object that will provide satisfaction, but about the persistent lack that keeps us searching. The objet petit is the name for the object cause of desire. It is not the thing we think we want, but the elusive remnant or small other that represents the lost part of ourselves that we can never recover upon entering the symbolic order. Because our entry into language involves a fundamental loss, we are left with a permanent hole in our being. We spend our lives chasing various objects, money, fame, or romantic partners, believing they will make us whole. However, these are merely substitutes for the objet petit, which remains forever out of reach. Each time we attain a goal, the lack persists, driving us toward the next object. This cycle reveals that desire is self-sustaining and fundamentally insatiable. Understanding the objet petit helps us recognize that our search for meaning is driven by a structural impossibility rather than a personal failure to find happiness. Lacan's reinterpretation of psychoanalysis had a massive impact on fields beyond clinical practice. His theories became central to feminist criticism, as thinkers like Lucy Irigaray and Julia Kristeva engaged with his ideas about the phallus and the symbolic order. In film studies, his concepts of the gaze and the mirror stage provided tools for analyzing how cinema constructs the spectator's identity. Slavoj Žižek famously applied Lacanian concepts to political theory, demonstrating their continued relevance. Lacan's influence also extended to post-structuralism, where his emphasis on the fragmented subject resonance with the work of Foucault and Derrida. While his writing is notoriously difficult, his insights into the role of desire and the symbolic nature of identity have become indispensable for modern critical thought, bridging the gap between psychoanalysis and the broader humanities.